Hello everyone, welcome to Dr.Dentistt. In this video, I am going to discuss about cranial nerves, their function and their origin, etc. The contents of this video are very simplified and easy for you guys to understand. So let's begin. Cranial nerves are the nerves that arise from the brain inside the cranial cavity and pass through various foramina in the bones of the cranium. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves present in our body, namely olfactory nerve, optic nerve, oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve, trigeminal nerve, abducens nerve, facial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve, accessory nerve, hypoglossal nerve. I'll explain about each nerve briefly. Now let's start with olfactory nerve. Olfactory nerve is purely a sensory nerve and carries the sense of smell from the olfactory epithelium to the parahippocampal gyrus in the temporal lobe. As shown in this picture, we can find the olfactory nerves on the roof of the nasal cavity and continues as olfactory tract. We have got the second nerve called the optic nerve, which is also purely sensory and carries the sense of vision from retina to the occipital cortex. As clearly depicted in the picture, it follows a course from the eye as optic nerve and forms an optic tract and reaches the occipital lobes. The third cranial nerve is the oculomotor nerve. It originates from the nucleus in midbrain and carries motor fibers to all the extraocular muscles of eye except superior oblique muscle and lateral rectus muscle. It also carries parasympathetic fibers which arise from Edinger-Westphal nucleus in the midbrain, which innervates the ciliary muscles. It also serves as efferent limb of pupillary reflex. The important point to be remembered here is the superior oblique muscle and lateral rectus muscle is not supplied by the oculomotor nerve. The fourth cranial nerve is the trochlear nerve, which originates from the trochlear nuclei from the medial midbrain, and it supplies the superior oblique muscle of the eye. The fifth cranial nerve is the trigeminal nerve, which has the following three branches, namely ophthalmic branch, maxillary branch and mandibular branch. Even these three branches have many branches which will be dealt separately in a different video. This nerve is also called as mixed nerve because it contains both sensory and motor fibers in it. The sensory fibers of trigeminal nerve carry pain, touch, temperature to the nucleus in pons, whereas the motor fibers supply the muscles of mastication, namely the temporalis muscle, the masseter muscle, lateral pterygoid and medial pterygoid. This nerve also serves as afferent limb of corneal reflex. This picture clearly shows the division of trigeminal nerve, which are ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular, and the zone innervated by them. The sixth cranial nerve is abducens nerve, which is a pure motor nerve, supplies lateral rectus muscle of the eye, which is one of the extraocular muscles. The seventh cranial nerve is called the facial nerve. The facial nerve also has motor, sensory and parasympathetic divisions. The motor fibers of the facial nerve supplies the muscles of facial expression. The sensory fibers of facial nerve is called the chorda tympani nerve. It gets signal from the anterior toothed of the tongue to the nucleus tractus solitarius in pons. Whereas the parasympathetic fibers of the facial nerve innervates the submandibular and sublingual salivary glands. The motor fibers of this nerve, which supplies the muscles of facial expression, are divided into 5 branches, namely the temporal, zygomatic, buccal, marginal mandibular and cervical. The eighth cranial nerve is the vestibulocochlear nerve. This nerve is purely sensory and receives input from the cochlear ganglion and vestibular ganglion, and they terminate at the nucleus in pons and medulla. The vestibulocochlear nerve is responsible for hearing and position sense, which is equilibrium. In this picture, we can finally differentiate the cochlear nerve and the vestibular nerve. This picture also shows a pathology called acoustic neuroma. Kindly do exclude that. The ninth cranial nerve is called the glossopharyngeal nerve. This nerve carries sensation from the palate and pharynx. This nerve also serves as an afferent limb of gag reflex. This picture clearly shows that how the signals are carried from the posterior one-third of the tongue and inferior nasopharynx through the different branches of the glossopharyngeal nerve and carried out to the cortex of the brain. The 10th cranial nerve is called the vagus nerve, which supplies the motor fibers to muscles of palate, pharynx and larynx. This also supplies parasympathetic fibers to the visceral organs below the neck. This picture shows areas like supraglottic larynx, laryngeal and lingual surface of the epiglottis and the lower pharynx where the motor fibers of the vagus nerve are innervated. The 11th cranial nerve is called the accessory nerve, which supplies the sternocleidomastoid muscle. The 12th cranial nerve is called the hypoglossal nerve, which supplies the muscles of tongue. And that's about the cranial nerves. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did so, please do like this video and subscribe to Dr. Dentist. Thanks for watching.